spreadsheet, don't be upset at what I put at the top. This isn't personal. I put at the top, I wish someone had told me how to revise. And I really mean that, because I did my first degree, and no one told me. At all. My wife tells me it's obvious. I don't actually think anything I'm going to tell you here is obvious. So let's go through it. So it'll be an assessment. When I finally get Blackboard to work, what I'm going to show you on the next few pages, you can download and set up. So it'll be somewhere here in this page, and you'll see it as an Excel spreadsheet, and this is what it is. So let's move on to the next page then. Now, the first thing about revision is you must learn discipline. So for you young ladies, you probably do this. You've got a diary. For men, it might be a new instance to look at a diary and say, I'm going to plan. And I don't mean funny, but it's just I didn't have a diary. My wife does, so I don't know why. It just happens that way. But what you've got to do before you start is start planning your revision. And I'll tell you what you're really doing. You're taking control of your life. You're starting to build in systems that you start depending on in the future. You're planning your time. In a job, in an interview, if I ask you, how did you actually revise them? If you say, oh, I just read a book, I just sat down and did it. Okay. I'm not sure if I want you to be a project manager. But if you say, well, the first thing I did is sat down and thought about when do the exams happen? How much time have I got? When do I start? Which one do I start with? Now, if you look at these, I'm not saying this is the best way to do it. I'm saying you should plan something, maybe not do what I'm doing here, but always think about maybe structuring the subjects you look at, maybe diversifying, not going, I'm going to spend a week on this one. Oh, God. Maybe my diverse practice that I talk to students, and they said, yeah, I like moving around a bit, so I just do a low-level learning, then I get deeper. Now, I'll tell you the trick. What you're actually doing is this. Total immersion. Total immersion in the grammar, the theory, what the subject's about. So you start looking at low levels. I'm going to show you the list in a minute. But this is basically saying you plan what you're going to do as a methodology. Now, if you've never done this before, I'm not saying it's better than what you do. I'm just saying give it a try. It might help you. Let's move on from there. So I step through the days. And sadly, it does show you what I am. I'm a control freak. In industry, that seemed to help me when I had a company and I ran a group of engineers. They seemed to like it that I seemed to be in control. Not sure if it's good. I wasn't always, and I did make errors. But if you do set up things so you know what's happening in the future and you project manage, it seems to work for companies. So let's look at the next issue then. The next issue is, when you get to the exams, maybe you've got to think about the way you deal with it. And I'm not going to tell you exactly how it does. You can look at the Excel spreadsheet, you see one approach that I've taken and students agree. Now, this is the list that you might go through. This list may not be your list. This list is trying to get to 100%. This list may be over the top. This list might not be what you think about, but this list is wrong. It doesn't have the video lectures, because this is the first year I've ever done them. So if you didn't have the video lectures, the first thing you'll realise is I'm, apart from Peter, who's recorded his lectures and hasn't put them on the website, I seem to be the only person that records them. The reason you re-listen to things like this is rote does work. It's not exactly rote, but it's representing the data by audio. And you've got to realise you're visual, verbal, and you listen. So why not try multiple ways of getting the data in, right? Representing it. So maybe represent the data yourself by switching through the lectures in PowerPoint and actually listening to the audio. So you can do that. Then you should think about, how do I then become totally immersed? How do I understand the grammar, the theory, the deep knowledge? Well, one of the ways you could do it is to reread the lecture notes, and then look at the Q3s and say, how can I quickly check? Q3s do very few checks. And then after that, you can look at the questions at the end. They're a bit more deeper. Some of them might give you the answers, and they do, to past exam questions. But they might come up again in a slightly different format in this year's. So then what I try and do is say, well, what you've got to do is nothing but this. Compression. These lectures into your head, somehow, so you can disseminate them in an exam. So one of the ways of doing that is to try and think about how you might compress them. These are some ways you could do it. You could write your own summary sheets, and then take from the summary sheets keywords and then map them onto a mind map. If you're still not sold on a mind map, the only thing that a mind map's good at is association. There's a guy called Tony Bazan who made lots of money out of this. It was actually another guy who wrote the first mind map books who made them in black and white. Tony Bazan made them in colour and has gone around the world getting people to buy hardbound books and do lectures on it and make a lot of money. It was actually De Bono that did it, if you've ever heard of it. He did the first mind maps in a black and white book years ago. So mind maps are useful for compressing data. The main point about mind maps is they associate facts, and you could expand them to paragraphs in your answers. And some of my students have been brave enough to just put them at the start of the answer and then write a paragraph under it. I might not mark the mind map, but it helps you as an aid memoir. And I won't mark you down for it. Now, the next thing is now we're getting to serious honours degrees. That's the start. Now we pass all the past exams, and we do them. We then create our own virtual exam, and we first just do it, and then we time it. So you're basically getting into, not only do I know the information, I know how much I know, by testing myself on past exams. And by the way, I gave you those in my first lecture. The first lecture, I gave you the module guide, and they're at the back. So you've had them all the time. You could be clocking through and said, I can do that, I can do that, can't do that, and revisit the lecture. And finally, this is a bit that I've never seen anyone do yet. This is very hard. This is extremely hard. Be careful at looking at me or looking at these sentences and understanding what's happening here. This is nothing to do with machismoism. This is nothing to do with any more than, do you know what you know? I did this when I did my MSCs. I'd been in industry for a long time. I was a manager. I decided to get out and think again. I did an MSc in microelectronics, and that chip I've been showing you, I made that. Doesn't work, but I made it. It's nice to laugh. It cost me £27,000, the company, and the government paid me 40k for it, and luckily Southampton University burnt down. Yeah, exactly. It's sad, isn't it? Anyway, let's move on to what this really is. So this is a sheet, and I've got this in my office. If you ever come into my office, I'll show you them. On circuit theory, MSc circuit theory, and it's about 10 pages where I write down all the things I need to know and leave gaps. This formula, leave that. This paragraph, explain that. Everything. If you don't want 100%, I agree, don't do this. This is maybe a silly attempt by me to try and understand a lot of things. And at the end of this, one of my lecturers said to me, but Richard, you were the few who got two characters. What, you mean some people got marks in the exam which were one character? Which is less than 10, isn't it? I'm thinking, okay, I don't want to know. They obviously failed their MSc. So this really is the final test. Well, what it is this. It's a self-reflection. You create a sheet of everything you think you know, you copy it 5 times, and then you use it. You want to fill it in. You've done the past exams, so you're above that. And what you do is go, oh, I can't remember that. Go to your mind map. Oh, that doesn't help me. Go to your keywords. That doesn't help me. Go to your summaries. That doesn't help, read the lecture notes. If you're still not there, go and read the book. What it's really doing is this. I want to know what I know. If I don't know, I've got to reevaluate myself by total reflection. This is scary stuff. If you've never done this in your life, it's nothing to do with anything but trying to achieve maybe something that you never thought of achieving before. Anyway, let's move on from there. So that's the method. The next thing that really could change the marks you get is this. I've been marking exams for some years, and I've been in lots of places. I was in a place called South Bank, and I used to talk to a room like this, but there was 800 of you. And the funny thing about that is one of my lecturer friends said to me, Richard, can you do it? That was implicit. And then I saw him do it. And he said, Pete, John, Alex, no, I can't do that. And the funny thing is, I'm very pleased to have lectured you. I hope you enjoyed it. But please remember the other things apart from my funny technique for revising. These might help you. Don't write small. I've had some people that write in pencil, and I'm thinking, I need another pair of glasses to mark this. The other thing is, it really does make a difference if you use good grammar English and you construct your sentences. So try and use good English, try and be tidy, and then maybe between each question, leave a gap. Some people just keep writing. I think, well, just leave a space, please. Because I've got to, and all of us have to decode what you've written. So try and make it helpful to yourself to get maximum marks. And then once you've done that, always remember this. This is where you go wrong. Explain that. There's a diagram. I've explained it. No, you haven't. I'll explain this. This has nothing to do with you. This is what we really do. So if you're doing a PhD, one of the critical things we do in a viva, this viva can last 2 or 4 hours, and it will decide if you get your doctorate or not. We might go through and say, here's a diagram. Haven't got a very good caption there. Explain what that means. Now, I'll tell you how crucial that is. When I was first doing my mentoring PhDs many years ago, when I was a bit younger, maybe prettier, I don't know, one of my students had produced their first draft, and I went through it and said, okay, so you're doing principal component analysis, so what does that diagram mean? Okay, remove it. Can't explain it, don't have it in there. So what we're really saying is if you do put a diagram in to get the full marks, think about a paragraph to explain. Now I'm going to say thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you. I hope I see you again next year, and bye.